Welcome to the latest edition of Out the Blue podcast. I'm with Dan Kitchen, our CEO, and we're going to cover the topic of how important is a reliable MSP today. So, big topic. Why should we listen to you today on reliable MSPs?
I think I've got a lot of experience in this field, having built razorblue from its sort of inception early doors to the 200-ish people that we've got now. I've been hands-on as a technical person back in the day. Got a wealth of understanding of how IT services should be delivered in a business, and hopefully some useful learnings for people today.
Just for the audience, I think it's really interesting, your background and just how involved you were with the evolution of razorblue's services, especially cloud and connectivity. Can you just give us a bit of a feel for your involvement in those two?
Yeah, I think early days I was involved. This is before the cloud was a thing. We started calling the clouds the cloud. Yeah, I was heavily involved in data center architecture, our core network architecture, all that sort of stuff. So I was the person that built razorblue's core network, turned us into an ISP, built our cloud platform, turned us into what is now a cloud hosting offering. So yeah, I've got a wealth of experience of really sort of detailed technical skills from building those platforms, and I've still got a wealth of knowledge in those areas, but obviously my responsibilities have changed a little bit of recent.
I know, obviously, but back 13 years ago, obviously we had late night data center trips to actually go and hands-on do bits and pieces in there, which was fun, but less involved these days.
Yeah, I do miss being on the tools. Do like to still go and see what the team are up to occasionally. It's an interesting part of the job for sure.
Yeah, it's grown somewhat.
It has indeed.
So, an MSP, what does that truly mean?
I think that's an interesting question, because an MSP is a relatively new terminology. Things have changed in recent years, and I think I think MSP is probably born out of what used to be IT support many moons ago, and has morphed itself into a bigger thing now, where it's all encompassing. It's about strategy, direction, sort of the full service wrap around a business's IT stack. It's certainly moved on as time's gone on.
So what services, typically for us, people that don't know about what an MSP's capability is, what services can that deliver for a business?
I think these days you'd expect an MSP to deliver all of a business's IT services. So from that IT support service to the strategic guidance, to the licensing that they need, to the connectivity, to any application development integrations that they might need, really sort of embedding themselves in the business's technology requirements and delivering it from scratch, and then managing it, maintaining it, keeping it secure.
The security piece, I know, is a big thing that obviously you've been working on. razorblue released recently, so we'll come on to that at the end. I've got a piece on that, we'll cover that. In terms of, so it leads me on nicely to the next part, which is, in your opinion, what makes an exceptional MSP?
I think that's a difficult question, because we live and breathe it here, and we know what we do, and we know what we do well. But having not had too much exposure to what other people do badly, it's a difficult one. I think it all comes down to client relationship management. What we do here is very focused around that. It probably costs us a bit more than it costs the business, but the way that we align an account manager and we align a solutions architect to every customer, meaning that they've got the best of both worlds. They've got someone who's responsive, can sort out commercials, can turn things around quickly, and they've also got that technical expertise. We deliver a strategy for every customer that looks at best practice that's out there and how we apply that to their business. All of that sort of stuff I think is really key, that relationship. But also we've got to deliver on the business as usual stuff as well. So, great service desk with the right skills, available 24 hours a day, that sort of thing, as well as a professional services team who can deliver projects on time, on budget. I've got the skills to do that, the knowledge, the history, project management team who can arrange that and coordinate it. So really a big collection of people that our scale allows us to deliver.
Yeah, I think the key part there, the customer focus piece, is obviously something I've obviously been involved in. And I know when we first met 14 years ago, which seems like a long time ago now, you were absolutely adamant quality was the kind of key to success, and that was 14 years ago and very early in Razorblue's kind of journey. The other thing was providing customers with what they need. So obviously the varying budgets play a part in this as well, and delivering to that. So that was obviously key. So obviously there's a lot of things there that Razorblue do. What are other kind of what separates Razorblue from another MSP in terms of the services and how they deliver them?
Yeah, I think we've got some key differentiators. We were born before the cloud was a thing, and we were delivering cloud before it was called cloud. And I think having a lot of those capabilities in-house, so certainly having the ISP, Internet Service Provider capability, where we've got our own network and can deliver connectivity services in quite complex configurations where we need to, as well as the cloud services delivered from our own data centers, the software development skills that we've got in the team as well, and integration skills. I think they are key differentiators. We are able to provide a much more cohesive package to our customers, where I think previous experiences from others have been quite disjointed, where they've worked with another managed service provider who perhaps doesn't have those capabilities and skills.
So from a customer's perspective then, how does that, because that's a great point, how does that, the joined up approach, help a customer? What does the customer see and feel by that joined up approach?
I think it's just not being stuck in the middle. I think one of the key challenges for businesses these days, particularly those who don't have technical capabilities and skills in-house, is if you find yourself stuck between a couple of suppliers who perhaps have a disagreement about something, it is very hard for you to mediate and decide who's in the right and who's in the wrong, because you just don't have those skills to know, and that leads to frustration. Whereas using a single partner who has all those capabilities, you don't have to worry about that, because ultimately you can hold them accountable.
And from our, from Razorblue's side and our side, it must be, it's so much easier to deliver a solution from a technical architect, solution architect point of view when all of the pieces are kind of in our control.
Yeah, absolutely. It makes it so much easier. We can design a solution. We've got all of the skills we need in-house to be able to go and pull something together. So, whether that includes multi-site connectivity, SD-WAN, cloud services, Microsoft stack, a bit of software, a bit of integration required with something. Our solutions architects can collectively pull something together without needing to speak to anybody else, which means we can turn it around quickly and we can have real confidence that the solution is going to work.
So from, obviously there's a raft of things there that a customer obviously will benefit from. What's the kind of key parts for a customer, and from our point of view of how we deliver our services, how does that set a business and a customer up for success?
I think it is that cohesive approach through the relationship management and solution design, where we're bringing all these different things together. I think what's interesting is sometimes you hear that people don't want to, what they call it, they don't want to put their eggs in one basket, for example, and they say, I'd rather split my risk up, blow my risk, put it different suppliers. And actually, in some ways, you create complexity and you create risk by not doing that. And actually, you don't get the strategic advice and the joined up thinking that you'd otherwise get by using a single partner.
Yeah, when I was in a previous role 15 years ago, which was a local authority, it was all about splitting the risk. It was all about multiple suppliers. I think the thing with IT, it's got exceptionally complex in terms of all the different parts. So it's gone full circle that one partner, one good MSP can obviously deliver on that and help businesses demystify, that whole complexity piece. Okay, kind of going into the managed IT piece of what an MSP can deliver. What should a good partner be providing for a customer on a regular basis, just as a standard service for managed IT?
Yeah, so we describe managed IT as sort of our flagship product that is a support and ongoing maintenance. There are add-ons and variations to that, but what should a business expect as standard with that. You'd expect a great service desk where you can log an incident, you can get a response quickly, where that's routed to the right teams, the right skill set. That's quite complex in today's landscape, where you've got different networking skills, security skills, cloud infrastructure skills, and so you need a diverse team. Aside from that, you want great reporting, SLA management, so you get responses on time, you're getting reports to back up your usage. Management of your estate, so patch management, really crucial in today's world, making sure that every device has got security patches installed, that things are working correctly, so your endpoint protection is installed. All the basics, really. There's the basic keeping the nuts and bolts together of how that tech stack works. You've then also got business continuity management, so if you've got backups that you need to make sure are working correctly, making sure that is the case, quickly alleviating any issues. And that's the basics of managed IT. You've then got other services that sit behind that around that security stack, where you're investing more heavily in management of security.
Okay. So just want to, because AI is the buzzword at the minute, how do razorblue use AI on the kind of service desk function?
We've implemented AI really successfully. We've intentionally not done it to replace any human tasks that are client facing. So we haven't got anybody talking to bots or anything like that. Still don't think that delivers the level of service that customers expect. But where we are using it is to help us understand things that we receive and automate that process really quickly. So when a user logs a case with us that would typically have been triaged by a human, we now triage that using AI. It's far more accurate than a human, and it means that we can triage a case and route it to an engineer usually in about 15 seconds, where that might have been in a queue for 5, 10, 15 minutes before it got to somebody. So it's helping reduce our resolution times. We're then also using it on every response that goes in and out to pick up on the things where we might need to use, like, do we need to route this to a different department? Do we need to get a different person involved here? Has somebody potentially misunderstood something? We're using it to analyze out all those things, and our team leads and managers, so that they can jump into something as soon as they need to.
Fantastic. We'll cover account management in a short while as well, because I know that's a huge piece that razorblue put a large amount of emphasis on to deliver a better service. I know we've recently just launched the V2 of our client support as well. Can you hear a little bit on that as well and what that delivers customers?
Yeah. But as you know, we've always been a business that's developed our own tools. So rather uniquely, we've got our own platforms that we use for all of our client relationship management, and that includes Supportal. So we just launched the new version of this earlier this year. We've got a team of 5 people working on that, constantly adding new features and functionality to that. But everything is in there, from support case management to reporting to finance and billing to managing your users, permissions, licenses, and a load of technical controls for clients who've got perhaps an in-house IT department and want to be able to manage some of those services themselves without having to come and speak to us. They can do all that through the portal as well. So yeah, huge investment gone into that, and we are continuing to add features now to that at pace. We've got a roadmap for the next 12 months of additional stuff that's going in there.
Fab. And then just one other point I want to kind of touch on a bit more is the proactive monitoring side of what we do for customers, because it's great when you hear customers go, I didn't even realise we had an issue and you've already resolved it for us. So can you give us a few examples of what customers could expect on how that kind of operates for them?
Yeah, about 15% of every case that we create in our case management system is monitoring driven. So that's driven by proactive sensors that we receive inputs on. So that could be something as simple as a server's about to run out of disk space, or it could be a complex networking problem, but we're receiving data, and using those data points, we're able to raise a case, and engineers are able to look into it and resolve it before it becomes customer facing. What's actually quite interesting as well is through some of our service automation stack, we've actually been able to automate some of those fixes. So where we've got really common repeat issues that have got a really straightforward common fix, we're actually able to automate that fix. So we detect the issue, we attempt to fix it automatically, and only then, if it's not remediated automatically, does it then go to a human to to actually fix it, which again just means we can be really, really quick at turning around key issues that could be business impacting.
So there's a couple of roles I want to kind of expand on a little bit more within razorblue, which is our customer experience division and our major incident team. Both have been invested in by the business to deliver a higher level of service to customers. Can you give us a bit of a flavour of what they're there to do and how do they help customers in the standard day-to-day business?
Yeah, if we start with major incident management, again, some of our smaller competitors, probably larger competitors, do have this function, but it's really, really key. And what it allows us to do is to really, really focus when there's a major incident or an outage to make sure that we've got 100% focus on resolving that issue because of the impact that it has. I think quite often a service desk can get lost with the number of issues and incidents it's got. So this brings focus to it. It means there's a dedicated person overseeing that incident until it's de-escalated and until it's brought back into service. So if that's, for example, if someone's lost some connectivity to a really key site or something like that, that's working with all the different parties involved until that is resolved and brought back up online. They're communicating with the customer, direct point of contact, and they're also communicating with all of our internal stakeholders and suppliers.
Customer experience, how does that help?
Yeah, the dedicated customer experience team that we've got really drives how we look at things. They're not tied to any particular department. They haven't got any allegiance to anybody. All they care about is delivering a great customer experience. So whenever we get some feedback that perhaps we've not done something quite as somebody wants us to, they step back and look at things from a completely independent view, and they resolve that issue, and then they feed that back into the business in terms of process improvements, and generally how can we avoid that or improve that process going forward so that we deliver a great experience every time.
Fantastic. And I know that they're looking at proactive approaches as well, in terms of it's not just waiting for the feedback to come in, they're actually going out and trying to be proactive on that. How do we stop issues at source much more as well, which gives a better overall customer experience.
Yeah, absolutely.
Fantastic. So obviously we talked about managed IT. What types of managed IT are out there? Which for different types of businesses, what do razorblue offer in that field?
So we got two different offerings, and it really depends on the client requirements. So some clients have in-house IT teams, some have none at all, and some have a bit of a hybrid of that where they might have some skills and not others. So we offer two variants. We've got our end user support solution, which is full coverage all the way from every end user to every piece of infrastructure. We look after and manage the whole thing. And then we have our IT teams solution as well, where we work with IT teams and support complex infrastructure and provide them additional support as they might need, where they might look after the end users and be the direct point of contact for their IT users. So yeah, two variants, and it really depends on the client requirement.
How important is it to be able to offer a 24/7 UK-wide solution here for customers? In razorBlue's experience, how has that been advantageous to the offering?
Yeah, massively. I think a lot of businesses now have an IT requirement that spans 24 hours a day. It's become so much more critical, particularly in sort of the last 5 years, that really it's not plausible to not have cover outside of those hours. So we've got a full 24/7 operations centre based in the UK, our own staff who work there, sat at desks 24 hours a day, who are ready to pick up on anything that may occur. We've also got a field engineering team, national field engineering team, who've got a presence across the UK, strategically located, so we can get to anywhere in the UK within 2 hours, which again, for a business that's got multiple sites across the country, that's really beneficial and pretty much a requirement in today's day and age.
Bro, so we've covered managed IT there. I kind of want to dig into account management a little bit more, and I know there's, like you say, a big emphasis on what we offer clients in this space. I think obviously we set out to achieve or to exceed in this arena, really, because I think managed IT and being an MSP is one part of it. It's the BAU element of it, whereas account management is the trying to go above and beyond. So what do razorblue set out to achieve with their account management function for customers?
There's an account management plan that's based around making sure that the customer has the right technology strategy. So us working with them to let them know what what is out there, what the capabilities are of the technology they've currently got, and what they can also invest in, and what's a reasonable level of investment, what a business would reasonably be expected to do, and how they can go above and beyond that. So that's really key, is that strategic engagement, understanding their business and understanding their needs, and how we then apply technology to that. And then they do the difficult part of translating that into technical requirements, into products and into services that we can then deliver, or that they might get from elsewhere.
Why is it so important that a customer allows us a seat around their table to kind of be able to do that against a customer who kind of keeps you at arm's length?
Yeah, it's a really good point, actually. We see this quite often where companies don't really want to let you engage. And I think as an IT partner, it's really critical that you understand their business and you understand what challenges they face and how we can help with that. I certainly say of the businesses that really involve us in that process versus those that keep us at arm's length, those that involve us getting much better service and are making much better use of technology because of that level of understanding and integration into their business.
Can you expand a bit on, obviously, Razorblue's vision of the account management function being technically led as against being sales led? Why is that technical element so important to Razorblue, and how does that kind of fall back to our ethos as a business in some ways?
Yeah, it's one of our sort of founding principles, and I think I've come from a technical background. A lot of the leadership team have come from that technical background of making sure we do right by our customers, and the solutions that we offer, they have to be guided based on our technical understanding of the requirements and how to apply them to a business. I think if you lead that with sales, it becomes very difficult. It becomes very difficult to be delivering value for money and delivering the right solution, because you're purely just trying to rack numbers up, and that's not our ethos here. We also have our solutions architects who join in that conversation to get really into the technical detail of how those solutions are put together.
So how does an account manager help a client find efficiencies within their business?
By having a seat at the table with the key leadership team within that business, they can understand where the pain points are and how technology can be applied. We spend a lot of time educating our account management and solutions architects teams on the products and tech that's available there on the market. So only when they get a good understanding of how the client's business works can they then apply that knowledge and think, actually, we've seen great deployment of this product in another customer. That would work great for your use case, and that will help you bring efficiencies maybe to a process or something like that. There's a huge amount of tools and platforms out there, particularly with the Microsoft Power Platform, where you can really easily automate key parts of business processes.
And obviously, finding efficiencies can lead to reinvestment in key areas such as security, which we'll come on to in a short while. So we'll go back to managed IT, and if you take a business who has an internal team right now and is considering going out to an MSP to outsource that, why is that a good move for a business? What benefits can that bring to a business against having an internal team?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question. It's an interesting one, because quite often we see IT managers resistive to that to start with, because they see it as a threat to their existence, threat to their job, and actually IT managers can add a huge amount more value to a business that they're involved in by trying to drive that IT strategy rather than being the person that's making configuration changes to a firewall, for example, or something like that. And I think it takes a little while sometimes for them to actually realise that their value is really big by helping to drive that strategy. So yeah, sometimes we come across resistiveness, but why should a business outsource? I think you can't get all of the skills that you need in a single person these days. It's practically impossible. Technology stack is so broad that if you want a specialist who is, can do end user desktop support all the way to, complicated security, configuration and strategy, disaster recovery strategy, cloud configuration strategy, networking. These are all specialist skill sets, and within our business we have different departments that deal with all of these things who've got specialists within them. So I think it's that realization that the broadness of tech spectrum now means that you need a much wider set of skills than perhaps you could employ directly. You might also need them 24 hours a day, which you can't do cost effectively internally. So a lot of that comes into it, I think.
And how does it help from resource planning as well then, in terms of obviously you've got an internal team and you've got to worry about sickness and holidays and all that sort of stuff. How does an MSP kind of just alleviate that concern?
Yeah, well, it just does. You don't have to worry about any of that. That's our problem and not the clients. Yeah.
I think I answered the question is when I was asking the question. Going to, obviously you mentioned about these different departments at razorblue that do different things for customers, infrastructure, security, etc. How does razorblue try and deliver the top service, or how does it break kind of a set of engineers down for each client to give the engineers the best chance of understanding the client?
Yeah, so we try to balance the best of both worlds. Obviously, we like to have the right skills applied for the task. So we do have specialist teams, and they're a more complicated level, a more technical, complex level. So we have a dedicated networks team, dedicated security team, dedicated cloud and infrastructure team, and a business continuity team. And they all deal with their own unique subject matter, areas of subject matter, I suppose. But for the day-to-day contact, which is the thing that users usually call our service desk about or raise tickets through the portal or email in about, they probably wanting to deal with somebody that they deal with on a more regular basis, and that has a good knowledge of their business and understands it. So we have dedicated teams within our service desk that are scoped to work with smaller groups of clients so that our clients are getting a more personal service and that person understands their business when they get to speak to them.
And how easy is it for a customer to log a ticket through your service desk?
Incredibly easy. So you can call in. Our average wait time is usually around 8 seconds to pick a call up. You can email in. You can use our portal, and we are introducing live chat as well as another means of support.
This all sounds great. Should a customer or a potential customer be concerned about cost of an MSP in terms of delivering this kind of service for them?
I don't think they should be. I think the cost of the services that we deliver is always going to be more cost effective than you delivering it in-house. Just through our size and scale, the number of team members we've got and the skills that we've got, to deliver an equivalent service in-house is always going to cost you more money. What's
the common issues that you've come across where razorblue have obviously brought on board a new customer and they've had an in-house team?
So you're talking about where we've come in and taken things, pick things up from an in-house team, and the sort of things that we find.
Yeah,
I think there are usually varying standards. Sometimes you have really competent internal teams who've actually done stuff to a good standard, but at the lower end, you can come into the most ridiculous network configurations you've ever seen. People who've got no backups and business continuity. Some of these quite large businesses with no backups, business continuity. Gaping security holes. In fact, we've picked up some where they've already been compromised. They just didn't know it, and we captured that onboarding phase. So, yeah, it's a really mixed bag, but I think it's important to be open book as part of that process and be really, really candid about what we find and whether it is good or bad.
I'll come on to the onboarding piece because I know that's such a critical part of taking a customer from the beginning to obviously, onboarded with razorblue. Can you talk to me about that phase a little bit and what can the customer expect at the end of the onboarding process? And I guess the thing which is, most business leaders' minds is what position are we in as a business when razorblue pick us up, really? So Can you just expand on that?
Yeah, we always do an audit when we take a new client on as part of that onboarding process, and it's a dual faceted thing really. It's so the client understands where they are, but also there's a bit of a duty of care really. We're now responsible for that environment, and if there's some really big issues with it and we've not highlighted those to client as part of that onboarding process, that could land both of us in hot water. So we're really clear about how we do that. I think some clients perhaps don't like the structure that we go through, but it's really structured for a reason, and that we want to make sure that we capture absolutely everything and that we haven't left any potential issues to lie.
And how easy do razorblue make that, or how easy should that process be, so it takes the burden off a...
Yeah, it's very straightforward. We assign a project manager. They deal with the process end to end, and so that involves working with an incumbent supplier or internal team. We then carry out our audit. We then talk about processes. So what does a new user look like? What does a lever look like? What about a change of role? We get a full understanding of all the internal processes that a business might require. We then build that up, build our documentation library up as part of that onboarding process, and then we get ready to move into service. And we can do that either as either as sort of quickly or as slowly as required, depending on the client requirement.
And we'll do all the heavy lifting, liaising with current incumbent supplier, etc.
Yeah, we'll do all that. Sometimes they're easy to deal with, sometimes they're difficult, but we'll always do our best. And we're very used to working in lots of different circumstances, so we're quite used to having to use our initiative where perhaps we don't get the information we need, or it doesn't come around as timely as it needs to be.
Hopefully it comes across a really interesting point, this one, because obviously it is the biggest concern for customers when looking at a move of IT supplier. But I think what you're kind of alleviating that, essentially, razorblue do all the heavy lifting, manage all the process, and the involvement from the customer is limited to an extent.
Yeah, it's limited. The responsibility's on us. Obviously, we need as much cooperation as we can for everybody involved, but we'll work with what we've got.
Fantastic. So, on to the future of razorblue in terms of the MSP journey from your side. Where do you see razorblue going in the next 12 months in this space?
I think the major area of growth for us, obviously, alongside the business as usual, continuous growth really is cybersecurity. It's a huge area. A lot of our clients are now seeing the benefit of investing in that and seeing that actually the regulatory landscape's changing and that they have to invest in those things. And a lot of the security stack that was once an enterprise sort of thing is now trickling its way down into the medium and smaller businesses. So we're seeing a massive uptick in customers investing in those services, such as our MDR, Managed Detection and Response service, which is effectively a 24/7 security service, as well as vulnerability management and all of the stuff that goes around that, around proactively addressing security threats rather than just responding to them. So, yeah, really big growth area for us.
Fantastic. Want to kind of just jump into the changes which happen from a managed IT point of view. So I think it's really interesting. Obviously, the live chat is hopefully coming at some point soon. Are there any other methods of communication that customers can expect to see?
I think what we're trying to do is, the way we're implementing live chat, when you go through the portal, you'll have to go through the normal process of actually just going, what's my issue? What priority is it? Little description of it, and then it will offer you the opportunity to go, do you want to chat about this now? Or do you want a phone call back about this now? Or do you just want someone to come back to you later? Or do you want to book an appointment? So we're adding all that functionality in there, but it's in a structured way. It's not just a hi mate, I've got a problem with my mouse sort of conversation. It's structured to make sure that the request goes to the right team. And should we talk about Net Promoter Score? So we use that for tracking our customer experience, and it's a internationally recognised standard for customer experience management, where a customer rates you on a scale of 0 to 10. We break that down and make it 1 to 5 because it translates better into smiley faces. I think people find it easier to pick from 5 smiley faces than they do from a number of 0 to 10. Our response rate on that's really good, and it really does help us drive our customer experience. So I'm a big supporter of the Net Promoter Score. I think we've seen some competitors badly implement that, like try to do it on like a 3 or a 4 point scale, which means that their scores look like off the radar, but they're actually wrong because you can't do it like that.
Visibility for customers to be able to see statistics is hugely important. I know that customers obviously track the feedback score and SLA because obviously that's critical to success for their business. How do you find keeping track of the statistics?
I think it's challenging actually, because there's a lot of different ways you can measure things, and if you think about like SLA is a great example of that, where when you're trying to calculate some of these statistics, you can be calculating based on, you know, when the case was closed. You know, do you count it then? Do you count it when the SLA violation happened? What about if that case spans over multiple months? Do you count it in the month that it was closed in, or the month that it was open in, or both? And actually, these numbers that on the face of it look quite straightforward are actually really complicated to calculate, and everybody does it differently. So when you're trying to benchmark yourself against the market, it can be difficult. I mean, a good example of that is how we calculate first time fix. So that's the number of things that we fix the first time a customer contacts us. However, if a customer just sends us an email, obviously, if they don't provide enough detail in the email, well, we can't first time fix it. It's not possible. So that ends up in our statistics. So we had to then look at, okay, well, how do we measure that? And so we did a lot of analysis of the market and how other people do it, and we decided that we can only measure first time fix where people actually contact us in real time. Otherwise, it's not a fair reflection of whether that's a first time fix or not. So I think actually, on the face of it, some of these statistics are quite straightforward, but they're really not.
And transparency is obviously, it's massive, isn't it, for a customer who's paying for a service and wants to make sure that we, you know, deliver to that service.
Yeah, absolutely. We're massive on that. All of those statistics, we share aggregated statistics on our website in real time. Each customer's got access to see all their statistics in the portal, which again are specific to them. We're really transparent on the feedback scores, the SLA, performance, call answer times, all that sort of stuff, which I think is important because we're a relationship partner and it's about building trust between the two of us, and we've got to be open book about how we're performing, and if we're not performing, what we're doing about it to make it better.
And the ethos of the business is quality driven, so it comes back to the roots of the business as well, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. We're absolutely massive on that, and you know, as you alluded earlier, we've got the customer experience team. It's all about knowing that we're not perfect and continually improving, and we are seeing that. You know, our net promoter scores moved about 10 points positive in the last sort of 24 months, and that's all testament to the fact that we're continually making improvements to how we do things.
So just on that, I think that's a really interesting point around the learning that is out there for our teams to kind of obviously take heed of and obviously do something with. How do we feed that into the machine and it comes out the end as a positive?
It's all about processes internally, and where we identify something, it's like you say, it's feeding it into the machine and making sure that it's tracked and traced all the way through to an eventual outcome and improvement. And the customer experience team are targeted on that in the management information that they provide. It's all about how something goes from being a learning, whether or not it's something that customers raised or it's something we picked up ourselves, all the way through to how we've changed a process or a procedure or trained some people differently, or, you know, changed a product or something like that to make something better.
I always find our escalation path really interesting in the sense of there's not many steps to get to you. So that, you know, that open door feel.
Yeah, we've got, as you know, we've got an escalation plan document. It's got everybody's phone number and email address on it, mine included. And, you know, if I take a good thing out of that, it's that I don't often speak to people who've made it to me. So that usually means that the people beforehand have managed to take care of whatever issue a customer's had and bring it to a swift resolution.
Because I know razorblue is so proud on obviously a low churn rate of customers, which has helped the kind of growth of the business, you know, 25-30% year on year. Monitoring that churn statistic is massive.
Absolutely.